because it is a fundamental teaching on my channel that if anything is going to occur, it will be seen from multiple different mathematical vantage
Oh,
points. And 2040 is this key date from multiple different species of analysis of this next pole shift event, which lines up in the book of Revelation with the sixth seal. When the sky rolls like a scroll, there's a worldwide earthquake, people hide in the caves and the rocks. The sun darkens, the moon turns blood red, rocks fall from the sky. And this is an event that has been predicted in prophecy from ancient religious texts all over the world simply because prophecies are merely scientific observations of past events. And this is what I'm telling my viewers a lot. This is why I was really impressed with what I was seeing from your channel, to see these things also elucidated from a totally different perspective. So what are your thoughts on the timing of this coming pole shift in proportion to the data sets that you have personally analyzed and seen? What do you think the next trajectory of events are? The trajectory we are on now, can you give us a rough chronology of the next maybe 30 years?
right. So 2040 is definitely within my danger zone timeline. This would be mostly based on the math of how fast Earth is changing. And I was, with that, you never really know when's the acceleration. I leave some room for error. And so I had said late 2030s all the way through the 2040s would be sort of my scary window. So, maybe call it 2037 to 2049 would be my scary window. So, of course, 2040 is right there within that. It's really interesting because I started this from a geophysics and a sun physics perspective. And when I got to the point when I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what is this major solar blast going to look like from the physics and what we know about nova astronomy throughout the cosmos? The sun is literally going to darken. There's going to be this shell accumulation in the upper atmosphere of the sun, and then that's going to get blasted off. And I realized, okay, wait a minute, that's going to be your 3 days of darkness. That's your solar flash. That shell that gets blasted off, that can turn into impactors. It can push asteroids out of their current paths and into the earth. And so I was like, okay, well, what else can religion, archaeology, mythology tell me? And when we look at some of those stories, I went back to the physics side of things and I'm like, wait a minute, that's also going to happen. It's amazing how catastrophism is the link that lets us know religion and science are not, it's not, you have to pick one. They're the same thing. It's just how literally do you read the religion versus can you understand what it would have been like 6,000 years ago for somebody with the equivalent of a third or fourth grade education today to be describing what essentially would look like magic. And if you can take that mindset, you start to realize they are literally just doing their best to describe things that we can today describe and predict and observe on a path to coming to fruition right now with science, which is seriously advanced.
This is also a common theme on my channel. I'm always explaining that when we dissect these traditions and myths, we have to do so by keeping it in mind that the frames of reference to a post-cataclysmic society would have been more primitive. So we have to remove that dressing to get down to the core fundamentals of what they were trying to communicate to us, because that is exactly what happens. After a cataclysm and the collapse of an infrastructure, it's the survivors who have basically lost their literacy, lost their infrastructure. They're the ones telling the tale, and that's what's preserved in the mythological record. And this is why these things seem so childish to us. But when we remove that childishness, we're left with core scientific facts about what happened in different periods of Earth history. And that's what I find fascinating. This is what Archaics is about.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more. That was a perfect way to say it. And so I guess getting back to your question about the chronology, I think at some point the sun is going to hit us with something and take out global power. Depending on whether that's this sunspot cycle or another one in the 2030s, a lot of the world could be gone before the sky rolls like a scroll and the earth turns over. Without electricity, it's simply a fact that a lot of humans aren't going to make it. One might even say the majority of humans aren't going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I can agree with the collapse of the electrical infrastructure. I can agree with that, which would stop everything. It would stop groceries from appearing in the stores. It would stop all the transportation. It would take about 6 months to a year for individual communities to basically come up with. It would be the barter system all over again. This is something that most people aren't aware of, that commerce was run by barter long before any currencies were actually exchanged. So
right.
this is the barter system is fantastic, and I can see that coming back. But the reason I agree so strongly that the infrastructure will collapse before the actual pole shift is because the nature of the eschatological references concerning the major battles and wars of the last days, before the day of the Lord, before this apocalypse begins to unfold. The apocalypse unfolds right after the pole shift. The pole shift introduces apocalypse. Prior to that, it's all preparatory. This is what the seven seals are. The seven seals in the Revelation, very specific. This is not a part of the apocalypse. These are seven seals that must be removed from a scroll, and only once the seventh seal is removed after this pole shift, which is the sixth seal, the scroll can be opened and the unveiling begins. And the unveiling is cataclysmic for people who are not ready for it, and it's an actual revelation of all kinds of new spiritual knowledge and material for those who are willing to receive it. It's two different realities unfolding at the exact same time after this pole shift. I agree that the infrastructure is going to collapse because the nature of the prophecies that are recorded leading up to this pole shift describe armies that are fighting with swords and shields and all kinds of things again. And this is exactly what you would find. If no one's manufacturing bullets, within 3 years, the next war will be fought with shields and spears. So it's just the way it is. It's you can have all the guns in the world, but if nobody's manufacturing gunpowder and no one's actually has presses going full steam to produce bullets, all the armament in the world will do you no good. So yeah, we have major war that's going to erupt in the Middle East. It's just prior to the pole shift, and what's being described in that war doesn't really make sense if they're using technological. It's different. Today's Western warfare is very different than the warfare of ancient times. But the warfare of ancient times is going to come back, and if we use like the standard as in the days of Noah concerning the last days. Well, in the days of Noah, that's how they fought too, on horseback with more primitive weapons. So I take all these little things into consideration. So I may be wrong, but in being wrong, that assessment still supports the fact that I agree with you that yeah, we have a really dark time coming even before the pole shift takes off.
I agree completely, and I'm glad you used the phrase "in the days of Noah."